Colin Cowherd is back on the Caitlin Clark train, and he's back calling out the haters.
Colin Cowherd has just ignited a major controversy surrounding the WNBA. Speaking directly on one of America's most popular sports shows, he made a bold statement that many Caitlin Clark supporters have been expressing for weeks. His comments delivered a sharp critique of head coach Stephanie White, cutting through the usual polished and carefully worded explanations from the basketball world since draft night. Cowherd argued that Caitlin Clark doesn't need tweaks to the system, minor rotation changes, or a different defensive approach. Instead, he said she needs a better coach, someone who truly recognizes a once-in-a-generation talent and is willing to build a franchise around her. In his view, Clark should not be forced into an outdated, rigid system, but rather supported as the centerpiece of a team. He also emphasized a key moment. When asked about Clark's explosive 17-point fourth quarter that erased a 9-point deficit, White reportedly avoided focusing on Clark's performance and instead shifted to general team comments. According to Cowherd, that response reflects a deeper issue, and it may have been the most damaging moment for White's public perception this season. Interestingly, that criticism didn't originate from Cowherd alone. It was echoed in White's own press conference remarks. The situation has now escalated further, fueled by Cowherd's national broadcast critique, reported fan backlash, a leaked sideline incident, and White's controversial media responses. Altogether, it has turned into one of the most intense and debated coaching stories in recent women's basketball history. To fully understand the scale of the tension, it's important to look at the broader basketball context behind it all.
Let's listen to him, man.
So Caitlin Clark, third season in the WNBA, has already set the record. She had another game in which she had at least 20 points and 10 assists. And I have been saying when she broke into the league, people said her comp is Steph Curry. Now, I think stylistically, the way she plays her game has got some Steph Curry. I think, though, in terms of an iconic player, she's more Michael Jordan.
The Indiana Fever fell to the Washington Mystics 104-102 in a double overtime battle. For most of the game, Caitlin Clark struggled offensively. Through the first three quarters, she shot just 4 for 20 from the field while dealing with intense, high-level defensive pressure. She appeared out of rhythm, limited by a system that didn't create much space for her to operate. Then came the fourth quarter. Clark completely shifted the momentum of the game. She caught fire from beyond the arc, hitting 5 of 7 three-point attempts and scoring 17 points in a single quarter. In that stretch, she erased a 9-point deficit almost on her own, dragging Indiana back from the brink of defeat and forcing overtime with a remarkable burst of scoring. Although the Fever eventually lost in double overtime, Clark's performance stood out as one of the most impactful individual quarters of the season, a display of determination and elite shot-making under pressure. After the game, a reporter asked head coach Stephanie White directly about Clark's late-game surge, specifically referencing her scoring outburst and three-point shooting. However, White chose not to single out Clark in her response. Instead, she spoke in broader terms about the team's effort, collective resilience, and overall execution. Her comments followed the typical coaching approach of emphasizing group performance rather than highlighting one player, even in response to a question centered on Clark's standout fourth quarter.
Record! Colin Cowherd went on record and stated, she is not the coach for CC, bruh. Now listen to NBC reporters during the game, y'all. Listen to this right here.
Tonight, Caitlin Clark has been responsible for 38 of Indiana's 77 points.
Fan reactions came quickly, and they were brutal. Social media lit up almost immediately after the game. Some fans argued that Stephanie White tries to sound like a coach such as Greg Popovich, but in practice doesn't lead like one. Others said the situation highlights why she may not be the right fit for Caitlin Clark, suggesting there's a disconnect between Clark's performances and how they are being acknowledged. A more blunt reaction dismissed the franchise entirely, calling both the team and coaching situation a failure. These opinions weren't just isolated takes from casual viewers. They reflected a broader frustration among a segment of dedicated fans who have been closely following the developing dynamic between Clark and the coaching staff since draft night. The discussion then shifts to a broader idea in sports leadership. how coaches respond publicly to star performances. When a franchise player delivers a standout game, especially in a clutch moment, coaches typically respond in one of two ways. Some directly acknowledge the individual performance, praising the player by name and highlighting their impact, statements that reinforce confidence, strengthen team identity, and signal trust in a cornerstone athlete. Others take a more generalized approach. They emphasize team effort, collective resilience, and shared responsibility, often avoiding singling out any one player. While this approach is standard in many coaching environments and reflects the reality that basketball is a team sport, it can sometimes feel disconnected from defining moments where one player clearly shifts the outcome of a game. In this case, Clark's fourth-quarter performance against the Mystics stood out as one of those defining moments. The argument presented is that it was a moment she fully earned, but one that, according to critics, was not fully acknowledged in the way they expected from the head coach.
Calm down, everybody, and definitely don't read the comments. But whatever the case may be, Caitlin Clark need her Phil Jackson. And as of right now, the closest thing to Caitlin Clark, Phil Jackson, is Lisa Bluter. And the Indiana Fever need to figure out a way to get that young lady, I'm going to call her a young lady, to get.
The situation then escalates further, with critics pointing to what they see as inconsistency in Stephanie White's post-game comments. In the same press conference, when discussing Kelsey Mitchell's struggles early in the game, White is described as being far more openly expressive in her praise, highlighting Mitchell's effort and impact in strong, individual terms. Critics argue that this contrast creates a perceived double standard. Clark's standout performances are framed as team efforts, while other players receive more direct individual recognition. This feeds into a broader argument being made around coaching philosophy and fit. Colin Cowherd's televised comments are referenced again, where he compares Caitlin Clark's situation to other legendary player-coach dynamics, suggesting that elite, high-usage talents often require systems built specifically around them to reach their full potential. The discussion emphasizes that this is not framed as a personal criticism of White's coaching credentials or character. Instead, it is presented as a question of compatibility between coaching style and player strengths, particularly whether a more collective, balanced system can fully maximize a uniquely dominant offensive talent like Clark. Supporters of this view also point to external signs of tension, including lower than expected attendance and visible frustration during games, as evidence of growing pressure around the team's direction. Reports of sideline disagreements are cited as further indication of strain between player and coaching staff. The narrative ultimately concludes that, regardless of intent, the current approach is being viewed by critics as a mismatch between system and superstar talent, with calls for adjustments to better align the team structure with Clark's role as the primary offensive engine.